I have never trusted the NFL play clock. I've always been someone that when the play clock starts running down and a delay of game looks possible, my focus locks on those numbers. And sometimes, and definitely not every time, but often enough, I feel like one of the final 3 seconds lingers. You know, it takes a little longer than the other ones. I'll be honest, I assume it's just my brain tricking me, because the alternative that the NFL uses clocks that can slow down just to let a play happen without penalties makes no sense. It doesn't make sense in the context of when these plays happen either, often on unimportant downs and distances, irrelevant of point differential in the game, and it happens to home and away teams. Now, do I think there's a great conspiracy? Not really, but in all honesty, I've never connected the individual event of the play clock to the result of the game, so I honestly couldn't say if it plays a role. More importantly, I'm still pretty sure this all just happens in my head. But that's not all. There's another, arguably bigger problem I have with the NFL play clock, and it's the lack of a buzzer or an outdoor sport alternative. What happens when the NBA shot clock runs out? There's a buzzer. There's no official keeping an eye on the clock like the NFL back judge. If the ball's not in the air, headed towards the basket, it's a violation. Now here's a screenshot of the Patriots-Jets game 1 full second after the play clock ran out, on a play that ran. And yes, the Jets were 24 points down and the play resulted in an interception for the Patriots, but rules in sports aren't subjective. They shouldn't be applied more or less correctly depending on the margin of a game. The Jets in this situation are losing by a smaller margin with more time than the Patriots had in Super Bowl 51. I'm sorry Falcons fans, that's the only time I'm mentioning it. Officials have no right to start being more lenient towards a losing team. This is all assuming that they're not just entirely inadequate and don't mean to do any of this. But back to the main point, are we all being cheated by the play clock? And as ridiculous as it seems, and as little difference 0.2 seconds would make, my brain is telling me that something's going on, so I had to investigate it. Now I've collected 14 occasions that the clock either ran out or came down to the final second from 8 different games across 2 weeks. Now I've set up a test in my editing software. I've set a marker every second for 5 seconds, and I'm going to take the footage, and from the very first frame that 5 seconds are left, I'm going to line it up against those markers. So therefore, when I click the first marker, it should be 4 seconds, then 3, etc. And as you already saw from the first test case, my test worked perfectly down to the very frame. So I trust this method. I accept it might not always be perfect, but if I find any occasion where times don't line up, I'm going to assume foul play from the clock. Out of the 14 plays that I looked at, only 6 of them had nothing wrong with them, which needless to say is less than half. Now of course what I wanted to find is that when the play clock should have been counting down 5 seconds, it ended up taking 5.5 or something like that. And unfortunately, not even close, so I'm putting in a disclaimer now that the few suspicious instances I did find are coming from me grasping at straws. Now the first one came in this Jaguars-Bengals game, and I'll cut a long story short, this video isn't going to be close to 10 minutes anyway. I think it's clean, it's probably just the broadcaster. The snap came off in time, and when the play clock should have gone to 0, it stayed at 1 for 0.1 seconds before resetting to 40. Now the reason why I mention it is because there are plenty of cases where the clock still ticks down to 0 after the snap, but it could just be CBS's clock, and in defense of this, there is a play that also doesn't roll down to 0 from Fox. So it's probably nothing, but because the snap came off in time, we'll never know. Then interestingly, we've got 2 instances both from the Saints-Bears game. Now is it Fox Sports, because since when can you trust Fox, or is it the Soldier Field timekeeper? I'll be honest, at first I really thought I found something here, and to be fair, check out this play. The clip is going to be exactly 5 seconds long, and what you should notice is that the clock went to 0 before the clip was finished. Now take a close look at my little editing experiment. At 4 seconds, the previous frame is 5, so it's lined up. However, at 2 seconds, 3 is 2 frames away, and at 0, 1 is 4 frames away. So the 0.3 seconds went missing somewhere. Exciting stuff, I know. Then there's a later play for the Bears on 4th and goal where the 3rd second seems to be 0.3 seconds longer too. And again, we can see from the second mark it's lined up, but there are extra frames before and after 3. But the whole thing still lines up at exactly 5 seconds long when it ticks down to 0. Like I said, it's not very scientific, but my suspicions haven't been denied or confirmed 100% either way. Just 96% confirmed that everything is running like it should. But that was never going to be the real issue with the play clock, 0. whatever seconds here or there. The problem is that the enforcement of the clock running out is left to human reaction. In a sport where a game can come down to literally 1 second, officials often let play clocks run down to -1 second before throwing a flag for delay of game. The play clock should work as clear cut as the NBA shot clock. If the ball hasn't been snapped the exact second the clock runs to 0, it's a delay of game penalty. So this Steelers play where the ball was snapped 0.1 second afterwards should be delay of game. The Seahawks take 0.4 seconds on this play, and you'd be right for pointing out that those are insignificant amounts of time, but if the ball is 1 inch or half an inch short of breaking the goal line, they don't give you the touchdown for being close enough. There is no reason not to have something like a buzzer that goes off, especially when you consider plays like these. The Jets one we already looked at where the ball still hasn't been snapped a full second after the clock ran out, and then there's this Steelers delay of game, but the first whistle isn't heard until well after 1 extra second has passed, and the same is true for this Ravens play where you can see no motion from the officials as 1 second has gone by. But without that 1 extra second, the Bears don't win this game against the Broncos, and the Patriots don't kick this field goal against the Titans. Okay, that last example isn't really game defining, but Patriots won that game 35-14, but those are two recent examples where 1 second made the difference. Now I'll admit it, this is a weird thing to take issue with when plays like this get called for roughing the passer. There are bigger problems with officiating in the NFL, but this video was actually supposed to uncover a dark underworld of rogue NFL timekeepers, but turns out that's just my imagination, so I had to settle for complaining about poor officiating again. This isn't even an episode of Officiating Watch 2019, but now it feels like it. But listen, the YouTube algorithm requires me to upload regular videos, and when my idea falls a little flat, I just have to roll with it sometimes. I mean, I did find half a thing, and made a valid point about the NFL needing something like a play clock buzzer.